Republicans are considering a unique approach to make sure they pass all of their legislative priorities and President-elect Donald Trump's agenda. Their strategy, combining their wish list of tax cuts, spending cuts, and border security into one big, beautiful bill. Here's Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday.
I respect Lindsey Graham and all my friends who kind of preferred a two-step strategy. The idea would be get something done on the border and maybe defense spending right out of the blocks very quickly in what we would call a skinny reconciliation bill, and then do the rest of it in a larger chunk later. But I think at the end of the day, President Trump is going to prefer, as he likes to say, one big, beautiful bill. And there's a lot of merit to that because we can put it all together, one big up or down vote, which can save the country, quite literally, because there are so many elements to it, and it'll give us a little bit more time to negotiate that and get it right.
That strategy would help Republicans quickly fund border enforcement while at the same time saving any potential fights over spending cuts or taxes later on. Trump aide Stephen Miller and other top Senate Republicans had advocated for a two-bill approach. That's because they believe a single border bill will pass very easily. Here's South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham yesterday.
I'm very worried. I'm very worried that if we don't put border first and get it done, it's going to be a nightmare for our national security. We've got millions of illegal immigrants that President Trump has promised to deport, and he should. Why are we doing mass deportation? Because we had mass illegal immigration. We're going to double the number of ICE agents to find people and kick them out. We're going to finish the wall and put technology on the border to shut it down. That cost $100 billion. I'm willing to offset the $100 billion with cuts in other places, but there's no way in hell Democrats are going to give us $100 billion for mass deportation. Every day we delay is a dangerous day for America.
Republicans are looking for ways to utilize what is called budget reconciliation. Now, in simple terms, budget reconciliation would make it easier for Republicans to pass bills that specifically pertain to fiscal matters. Budget reconciliation would allow Republicans to bypass the 60-vote filibuster margin in the Senate. All Republicans would need is a simple majority in the upper chamber. Democrats like Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar are pushing back. Here she is on CNN yesterday.
What I see this as being for my Senate colleagues is a moment. This is a moment where they're going to have to decide, are you going to just add to the debt and do everything Donald Trump tells you to do, or are you going to stand up on some of these things and say, wait a minute, we're worried about the debt? Our job as Democrats is to make that case, to pick our battles. We're not going to pick every single battle. There'll be some things that are red lines, but we're in this. We're in this in a big way, and there's ways to make your case without being able to be the deciding vote.
Of course, when the House and Senate tried passing a giant bill in December, it did fail, primarily due to its size. So basically the issue is Republicans need to do something about immigration. There's a mandate to do that. It's the top issue that Donald Trump ran on. Even many Democrats are concerned now about the levels of illegal immigration and chaos on the border. So there is bipartisan support. There was a bipartisan bill previously that Trump didn't want because he wanted it to be his bipartisan bill when he took over to deal with border security and all that kind of thing. But as Lindsey Graham pointed out pretty fairly, Lindsey Graham isn't generally my favorite political actor, but I agreed with what he was saying. It's going to cost $100 billion, and if we want to be fiscally responsible, as Republicans often pretend that they do, we need to offset that elsewhere. And so the idea of doing them together is to take care of that. If we're going to add to spending here, here's where we'll do cuts. And if you just do the immigration bill separately, if you just have your cake and eat it too, it won't be your vegetables are going to get left behind if they're in a different bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the issue here...
To use an incredibly mixed metaphor.
Go
ahead.
We'll let you away with it. A mixed metaphor is no bad thing. Look, I think that the problem or the topic here really isn't one where it doesn't seem like it's going to change substantively what Republicans do a whole lot. The issue that they seem to be debating is what gives them the highest chance of passing all of this stuff. So, as I understand the argument for splitting it up into two bills, it is that you could get border security done very quickly, and then you could later have the more difficult kind of horse trading around taxes.
Having the spending conversation later is always something that's kicking the can down the road. I'm a metaphor a minute here. that is concerning to me. I mean, I agree with Amy Klobuchar that we should be focused on the debt. I think it's very easy to be focused on the debt when you're the opposition party. All of a sudden, there's a lot of from the minority saying, "Oh, what about the debt?" and then not doing anything about it when you actually have power. But that is a charge one can absolutely level at Republicans as well.
Yeah, I mean, I note in relation to fiscal responsibility that Trump himself was on Truth Social, I think yesterday or else very early this morning, including his no taxes on tips idea in all of this. Now, whether that would really put a hole in the deficit, which of course is massive, and the tax on tips is less of a factor, but it doesn't appear like Trump generally has a whole lot of appetite for balancing the budget, for example, if it comes at political
Well, he
cost.
called to raise the debt limit.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that he is more, he's a populist, and populism does not tend to lend itself to fiscal conservatism very much, because that tends to involve taking things away from people or from the military or from spending, domestic sort of social safety net programs or all of those things. Taking money away from those things tends to be unpopular, and I think Trump knows that.
The problem is very basic. We spend too much relative to our level of taxation, but conservatives don't want to do more in taxes, and most of the American people don't want more taxes on them. There's always a kind of, well, you could put taxes on this income bracket or that income bracket and supposedly raise more revenue, although some economists will say, well, then you're going to raise the same amount of revenue regardless of how you kind of slice the pie. Man, more metaphors.
It's a metaphor fest.
To do that, so really we have to lower spending anyway. So if you're going to do more tax cuts, however, then you have to lower spending even more dramatically if you want to be fiscally responsible.
Right.
And that is the challenge. Addressing the border problems is going to cost money, and doing it now, you could maybe do it as one bill. Maybe that gives the spending cuts, whatever the fiscal arrangement is, more chance of surviving if it's attached to the popular do something about the border bill. So that's what advocates of the big, beautiful bill, as Donald Trump is himself, thinks it's more likely to get those passed as well if they're part of the border bill.
Yep.
It's possible you could tank the border bill by having that stuff be so difficult to agree to and divisive, and oh no, you can't cut, this is my special project, this is my special project, my constituents want this, my constituents want that, and you could cause the whole thing to fail.
Exactly, and that argument, I think, it's this interesting debate almost between optimists and pessimists, right? Because the idea is, if you put it all together, does everyone think, oh, there is something good in this that I want to vote for, therefore it should pass? Or, as I tend to think is more common in politics, the pessimistic view is everyone
well, I like this, but there's something
to.
I don't want in it, so it's not going to
And then the whole thing just gets bogged down.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think the strategy is still being worked out. I think you mentioned that Donald Trump had just...
in an interview just this morning with Hugh Hewitt, Trump suggested that he was kind of open to either approach as long as the underlying priorities got passed. We'll see.
We shall see. More Rising right after this.